Welcome everybody tonight to Fascinating Fae. Tonight, we're going to drop in on some updates from guests that have been on the show in the past season. Often, after I have a guest on the show, they will email me or send me a DM, often directly after we hang up, describing high strangeness occurring. Certainly, many of the guests that I talk to message me the day after and describe a wide range of, fantastic and amazing secondary, I guess we'll call them confirmations or portions to the encounter. However you want to frame it, I do think it's interesting how many of the guests that I talk to describe, after talking with me, seeing something, having something move, having something appear. And of course, I do believe in its way that phenomenon also bleeds out through the audio into the listeners' lives because of the many examples of people coming forward that has produced as well. All of this is just to say that among the many privileges and pleasures of doing this work is that I get these updates from people. Occasionally, I like to tuck these updates in at the end of full episodes, so always listen to the end because there's often Easter eggs. But for this particular episode, I just wanted to take a collection of about 4 or 5 interesting updates and string them all together. So pay attention, see if you can guess who the guest speaking is. I'm sure that a lot of you will be able to recognize these voices. And I will just be sort of weaving together for the next few minutes a collection of some of these interesting updates that have been sent to me as audio files from previous guests. For all of those listening tonight, you've been listening to Fascinating Fae. Again, I'm your host, Jim. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. The email address is encounters@fascinatingfae.com, and you can find this show on social media wherever you look by looking for Fascinating Fae. And on behalf of all of the human and non-human listeners tuning into Fascinating Fae tonight, a super big thanks to our previous guests for sending in that incredible collection of updates.
Hey, okay. Hi. I don't know where to start, so I'll do my best to be succinct. My little one is home. She's just watching Moana, so I might just send this in like a few different voice messages just to capture everything, but if I get interrupted, that's where I've gone. Okay, to start with, that ring is trippy. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about the ring. It's nothing to do with me, but there's just something about that ring. It's great start to my voice memo. Okay, I'll leave the ring for now. But thank you for sharing that whole ring thing. When I put my finger on it, I'll let you know. All right, so 1 week before the winter solstice, I felt this random just urge of energy, like surge of energy. I started cleaning the front of the house, cleaning up all the garden beds on a cleaning rampage, and very randomly, just was like, girls, quick, we need to make Christmas decorations out of all natural objects. And I didn't realize it was winter solstice 1 week away. I just, in June, felt like making Christmas decorations. So we did. We hung them in the house. And then after doing that, I realized that the winter solstice was 1 week away. Last year in December, I officially celebrated the summer solstice, which I've never done before. We went to the Daintree rainforest. I hung some bells in a tree the way I do. And I had 3 really fun nature encounters. The most outstanding toadstools sprung up from a tree overnight right next to our campsite. I had 2 birdwing butterflies do their birdwing butterfly dance right in front of my very eyes, which I've only seen twice in my life. Once then, and once the day after listening to the Jeff Wag episode, interestingly. And this kind of weird encounter with these 2 snails, really big giant snails. Anyway, so I was like, cool, solstices are a thing. Let's do the winter solstice too. So we went on Saturday. It was officially the winter solstice on a Sunday. Sorry, in build up to the solstice all week, I just had this feeling. Nothing particularly magical or strange had happened other than a meditation I did. I was shown an image of a stone castle on a hill. And then that afternoon, I saw the image at my friend's house using her bathroom quickly. That was the exact same image. I was like, whew, that's weird. And then I just had this feeling, that was during the week before the solstice. I just was like, nothing strange has really happened in the last 2 weeks, sort of thing. I was like, but I don't know. Something's going to go down in the winter solstice. Something interesting is going to happen. I just had that sense. And I was kind of excited. / also didn't put too much expectation in it because whatever, weird things do and don't happen. Moving on, Saturday night, we take the kids, invite our friends, we go to the beach, we have a bonfire, we take 1 bottle of very light alcohol wine, some marshmallows, toast some marshmallows on the fire, kids are tired and sandy. We come home, between 3 adults over the course of maybe 5 or 6 hours. We accidentally finished the bottle of wine. We're not boozers, it's just when we're 3 adults and it was many hours and it was light alcohol. And I thought, oh, bugger, I was going to leave a glass of that out as an offering tonight to, just honour the fae and that merry, joyous moment we had playing with like just these really fun little kids at the beach and watching the sun go down and roasting marshmallows. So I leave marshmallows out instead. Right before I went to sleep, you sprung into my brain. I thought, oh, I feel like I'm going to hear from Jim soon. He's working on my episode. They just sprung into my brain. I went to bed. 2 hours after going to bed, there's a knock on the door. My dog starts barking and there's a knock on the door. And there's just a random guy at the front saying, hey, I'm not here to cause any harm or anything, just letting you know your car's in the middle of the road. So, turn the lights on, put our clothes on, get the keys, go outside. My Triton, this big beat-up four-wheel drive beast of a car that I normally drive around, it's in the middle of the road. And it was parked right in front of the garage door where the green man punched those holes. No damage. You wouldn't even know anyone had been in it. Nothing was taken. I've got some expensive gear in the glove box and everything. The glove box was open. Nothing was taken. Nothing was damaged. It was no rubbish. You wouldn't even know anyone had been in there. Also, my driveway's on a bit of a slant, so you could take the handbrake off and it would roll down the driveway and just sit in the gutter. Well, it was at the bottom of the driveway, but the handbrake was on. Very responsible thing for someone to do. He'd rolled it to the bottom of the driveway, put the handbrake back on. The doors were open, and there was an almost full bottle of vodka in there. Matt and I went out, we looked at the car, and I stood there. Matt was all like, oh, someone's tried to steal our car. Yeah, sure, maybe they did, like totally. But I stood there and I looked back. I didn't touch the car. I didn't touch the vodka bottle, anything. I just stood there. I looked at it and I thought, that's weird. There's something weird about this. And then I did something very unlike me. Very unlike me. I didn't even tell Matt where I was going. I just walked straight back inside. I closed the bedroom door. I laid down in bed. And I was like, oh, my heart rate's really elevated. I'll never be able to get back to sleep. And then I was out. That was it. And I woke up in the morning. I didn't even hear Matt come back to bed. I just went straight back to sleep. Super weird of me to not be heightened and be like, check the perimeter. When the bottle of vodka came out of the car, I thought straight away, because I'm just looking at this situation going, oh, someone's tried to steal the car. It's a manual. They can't drive it. They've run off. But I thought straight away when the vodka bottle came out, the first thing that popped into my head was that episode where she leaves vodka as the offering and she sees it sort of like evaporate in front of their very eyes. And I was like, went back to bed, fell asleep, woke up in the morning, And I was like, oh, Matt, did you get it all on camera? Because he's got the security cameras out there. Whenever anything goes down in the driveway, we know about it. He's got the security cameras all set up that way. Nothing. And there was nothing wrong with the security cameras. There were no glitches that night. We're pretty prone to power outages here in the tropics with wild weather. But I know when there's been a power outage because our clock on the oven is flashing zeros and I have to reset the clock. Nothing, yeah. It was just all hunky-dory, normal in the house. Now, I was like, phew, it was giving me jitters and tingles, but I wasn't overthinking it either. I was like, okay, whatever. I got out of bed, I come into the kitchen, turn the kettle on, make a cup of tea, flip my phone over, there's a text from Jim. Holly, I've been working on your episode. Things have been really weird here, etc., etc. And that message was sent 2 hours and 26 minutes after midnight when the knock on the door happened. Now, the knock on the door happened at bang on midnight. Because when I got up and I rushed out, I quickly looked to the left where the oven clock is, 12 o'clock. I just always look at the time, 12 o'clock, bang on. I thought, bang on midnight. Bang on midnight on the winter solstice, and I've left marshmallows out, and I meant to leave wine. And the Green Man, I think he's rocked up here. Oh, here's another part, Jim, I forgot to mention. It was an extra detail. I kind of said, like, out loud when I was out the front, grounding my energy, I put my feet in the grass, I light a candle, I left the marshmallows, and I kind of said I did say out loud, I'd love a little encounter. Any of my Fae, living in the house or Fae family or whoever's around, please, and I was quite specific, I was thinking, I think it's Ruby, she had those encounters and her son got bit by that dog in the face, and I was specific. I was like, please, nothing that causes harm to my family or our property, nothing that scares my children or my family. I was like, you can scare me, that's fine, I don't mind being scared, it's kind of a rush, but don't scare anyone that lives here other than me. Don't scare my children, please, and don't cause any harm to anyone or our property. I specifically said that. And then 2 hours later, my car very gracefully gets rolled down the driveway, doesn't hit the camper trailer right next to it. It's a bit of a maneuver to get our car out without scraping the camper trailer. Not a fingerprint on the car. Nothing grubby, nothing going on. Actually, in my passenger side, I've got, annoyingly, 2 or 3 huge full shopping bags of empty plastic bottles that I've been meaning to get to the recycling for the last week. Last week we went, line was too long, I got bored, I left, I was like, we'll come back. They've been in there for a week. It's actually difficult to open the passenger side door without bottles falling out. There's so many just empty plastic bottles. Now that door was open and it was slanted down as well. And there weren't any bottles on the ground. They'd opened the door, the door was open, the glove box had been open. There is expensive gear in the glove box. We've got one of those jump start batteries in there. They're a couple of $100. So if your battery dies, you don't need jumper cables connected to someone else's car. If you're out bush and you're by yourself and your battery dies, you just jump start yourself. That plus heaps of other expensive forward driving gear, which is very popular and well known and well used where we live. It's a forward driving culture up here. Nothing was touched. Nothing was amiss. The doors were open. The glove box was open. And there was a bottle of vodka, which is expensive in Australia. Vodka is expensive. And it had, maybe a shot glass worth drunk from the top of it. It was an almost full bottle of vodka. The security cameras didn't go off. My partner was up all night. He's my foolproof thing for whether or not something was really strange. He couldn't sleep. He was up all night looking at the cameras, testing the cameras out, whether they turn on when you actually walk up the driveway or not, whether the cameras turn on when you reverse the car out. Yes, they do. The police even drove past. He didn't call them. They just drove past. Saw a guy out the front of his house at like 1 a.m. by that point, probably. Stopped, they had a yarn, they checked it out. They're like, yeah, I mean, someone probably tried to steal the car, but they too admitted it was extremely strange that there was no damage. They didn't actually fully steal the car, but they didn't steal any of the valuable full driving equipment. They didn't mess it up. They didn't scrape it, and they left the handbrake on. But they'd have had to take the handbrake off to roll it down the driveway, and they left us just quite an expensive bit of alcohol in the form of vodka. The only alcohol ever mentioned on the show is being left as an offering after I had intended on, yet neglected to leave alcohol 2 hours prior. Out the front, about 2 meters away, is this tiny little wooden table where I leave the offering, about two or 3 meters away from where the car's parked, basically, behind a white fence. So the only reason I even text you about that is because the first thing I saw upon waking after that incident is a text from you saying, hey, things have been really strange here. I've been working on your episode. I'm like, oh, cool. Your episodes are awesome. I've been listening along, loving all of it. Every episode, I'm like, it just gets better and better. It's so much from them. And then I was like, oh yeah, like, by the way, this weird thing happened. And as I was texting you, I was zinging. I'm zinging now. The goosebumps, the goosebumps so bad all the way into my temple that it makes my eyes scrunch. And then we have a bit of back and forth, and the more we share about the details, the more specific and strange it all gets. And just that little last top off, I'm trying to get my girls ready for a 7-year-old's birthday party. We're like, come on, we've got to go. We're going to be late. Wrap me a present. And I'm like, I just need to send this text. And in amongst the chaos of that, I look out the kitchen window and there's this green tree frog. I sent you the picture. And he's got his head stuck out the top of this gorgeous Birds of Paradise giant leaf. And he's looking right in at us all. And it's broad daylight, and he's looking right into the sun. And, I mean, green tree frogs are nocturnal creatures. I do see them. We've got them. They're residents here. They're part of our family. We see them. But I don't normally see them at 8:55 on quite a warm morning, staring straight into the sun. If I go look for them and rummage in the leaves and drains, I can find one. But they're not out and about like that at that time in the morning. Randomly, it was just for fun because we were on a roll. I sent you a photo. And then you send me a photo back and you've got a big juicy green frog on top of a bag of chips in a supermarket. Well, it looked like a supermarket on top of a bag of chips. Like, that is just not somewhere a green tree frog hangs out. And it was that morning as well for you. So when I picked up the phone to make this voice message, it was 11:11. Of course it was. Okay.
I feel like our reality, because we know there's different dimensions, right? We have science that proves there's different dimensions. I think our reality is so diaphanous that it bleeds over one from the other, and occasionally we catch it. That's what I feel like happens a lot of the times. It's like, oh, that reality bled onto this one, and that's why we caught this instance. Like, when we lived in Alaska, my ex put his keys in the same exact place in a basket every single day without question, because he was notorious for losing things. We moved into a duplex in Alaska, and within a week, he's losing his keys all the time. Never happens. Well, we were there probably 3 or 4 months before a friend of mine who was a pagan witch is like, have you tried feeding the brownies? It's like, excuse me? Have you tried feeding your brownies? And I'm like, first, tell me what a brownie is, because I'm thinking, the brownies from Willow. And I'm like, those little critters are running around? What? And she's like, no, brownies, they're like little fairy spirits for the home. And if you have things go missing a lot regularly, like the same item, try feeding your brownies. you know, they like different things and it's a trial error. Most of the time, like the stories of old say, you know, a dish of cream. So we started with a dish of cream. Didn't like it. Our Alaskan brownies liked vodka. We started giving them, we'd put it on like a little like saucer, just a little saucer, put maybe a tablespoon in, and you could watch it disappear. You could watch it. It was too fast for evaporation. You know what I'm saying? But you could just watch the plate dry up. It was crazy. His keys never went missing again. Sing again. Sing again. Sing again. Sing again. Recently, I've had a very odd string of occurrences happening to me. I keep finding fingernails I have broken off placed randomly around my house. And these are fingernails that I have purposely thrown into the garbage can, walked out to the outside garbage can when it was time to take the trash out, and taken the trash to the street. So, you know, it's crazy how they're finding me. So I live alone. I have a dog, but she's not big enough to reach where these fingernails are being placed. And like the instance I told you about previously in January was I had been laying in bed reading a book, and I put the book down and I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and a fingernail I'd broken off 3 weeks prior to this incident from my right middle finger was laying on top of the book I had been reading. So that was crazy. And I know it was my right middle finger, and I know it had been at least 3 weeks because the only other nail I had broken in that time frame was a pinky nail, and there's quite a bit of size difference. So I don't know what to do with that. Maybe my house brownies are mad at me and they're flipping me the bird. I don't know, but they keep finding my broken fingernails and putting them where I can see them, even after the city has taken the trash. How crazy is that? 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 How crazy is
that? So, synchronicities since we've had our interview, there have been a lot, and I'm afraid I probably will forget some. But I'll start with tonight because I just finally sat down with 2 hours to myself with nobody in the house where I could just listen to the interview that we did from start to finish because I really wanted to have the experience without, I just saw I'm going to call it a fairy light. I just saw a fairy light. I'm scared to forget things. I wanted to mention, first of all, that I just read your email and you had mentioned about your partner seeing your hearing your doppelganger in the night. And I often hear or see, like, I've seen a doppelganger of my father once as a child appear to me when I was really missing him, and we were staying with my mom's friends in a different town, like 3 hours away, and I was missing my dad. And this is one of my earliest memories of life, that they had put me to bed early because I was a little kid and everyone else was awake. And I saw my dad stand. He just materialized at the foot of my bed, and it scared me. Like, it wasn't comforting. He wasn't doing anything creepy, or he was just dad, but I knew that wasn't normal, and I was a little creeped out. And as soon as I started to get scared, he sort of faded out of existence. And I haven't seen a doppelganger per se since that, but I hear them quite often. When my kids were really little, they're 16 and 15 now. So this would have been quite some time ago. But my husband at the time, he would often leave in the middle of the night for work. And I remember this one particular night, I heard him on the stairwell, and he said, clear as a bell, don't worry, sweetie, it's just me, because he knew that I would be freaked out if I heard him on the stairs, I guess is why he said that. So I was like, okay, good enough. I didn't say anything, but I thought, okay, I'll try to go back to sleep. And I did try to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. I was wide awake by that point. And I thought, oh, I'll just go downstairs and see him off. So I went downstairs and he was nowhere to be seen. Car's gone. And like no sign of him. Like there's no fresh coffee, which he would always do before he left. And I texted him and I was like, where did you go? You left like in a hurry and I was going to come give you a kiss goodbye. And he was like, what are you talking about? I've been gone for hours. So there was that. And just a couple weeks ago, I heard my partner come in about an hour before he actually did come into the house. I heard him enter through the back door the way he always does. I heard him greet the dogs. I heard the dogs get excited. I heard him talking to the dogs the way he always does. And then I didn't hear anything else. And I was busy doing something upstairs, so I didn't go down and greet him. I thought, oh, he'll come and find me eventually. But then an hour goes by and no Jay. And he came in an hour later. He hadn't been there when I heard him come in. And I know I'm forgetting instances, but all that to say that I have that in common with your partner. And I wonder if that's her first experience with hearing a disembodied person, or if that happens to her more often. And actually, I was telling this story to somebody, or not this particular story, but just in general about how I hear doppelgangers. And as I was telling her this story at the kitchen table, I heard my son cough in his bedroom and he wasn't home. And I said, did you hear that? And she said, yeah. And I said, that was my son coughing in his bedroom, but he's not home. And like I had been hearing that one sound in particular for quite often, like for about a week on and off. I heard him coughing in his bedroom when he wasn't home. So I'm already rambling and it's already 5 minutes, this voice memo, and I haven't even gotten to the synchronicities yet. Okay. I think I wrote some down here. Yes. The song that you played at the end of our interview, I have to assume that that's your friend DK, because I know you had said in another episode that you use his music for all of your episodes, which is super cool. I like the sound. But the lyrics in the song were something about drinking we will dine and drink red wine. And I had a good chuckle because it just felt like confirmation to me that like that was okay that you're having a glass of red wine while you were chatting with Jim. Like that's fine, because I was feeling like a little bit ashamed about it at the time. I don't know why. It's silly, but I did. Like I'm a grown up and I'm allowed to have a glass of wine, but I did. I felt like a little weird about it. And I had heard myself take a sip at one point in the interview and I kind of cringed. And then I just thought, that was a really fitting song. Oh, did I lose it? No, I'm still with you. Okay. I thought that was really fitting and maybe meaningful. And while I was listening to the podcast just now, there was a sound going on my front deck, which sounded like, and I've heard this sound also plenty of times before, and I can never catch it, but it sounds like a heavy bowling ball basically being rolled back and forth on my front deck. And I always try to catch it when it happens, and there's never anything there. And it has happened to me at other places that I've lived too, this exact same sound, not necessarily outside. Today it was like out on my deck, and that's where it happens at this house. But I have lived in another house previously where I would hear it upstairs, like on the upper level while I was downstairs. So whatever that's worth, I don't know, but that noise was happening as I was listening to the podcast. And what else? there's been a lot. So after we had our chat, I had a really restless night. It wasn't that night, but like just a few nights later, I was home alone. Kids were at their dad's. And I just had like a super restless night. And it wasn't because I couldn't sleep. Like I was tired and I really wanted to sleep. It wasn't like I was anxious or anything like that, or had too much coffee. It wasn't my fault, is what I'm saying. This house felt so full of company, and this feeling has been happening. I've been in this house for probably, I don't know, it's somewhere between 10 and 12, maybe 13 years. And this feeling is new. Like I've never really felt that this house has been particularly active, well, compared to other homes I've lived in. But off and on, I will have a feeling of, and actually it's since I started listening to your podcast, so maybe it's related, of the house being full of people. And sometimes I can almost audibly hear, but I can't catch words, but I can hear like the droning of like a lot of voices talking at once. Like if you're hearing a kitchen party from 2 rooms removed kind of thing. And this particular night, it did feel like there was a kitchen party, like specifically in my kitchen. And my dogs were going apeshit. So I've had this baby gate. I have a really large kitchen where my dogs live. Not that they can't come in the rest of the house, but at night they're in the kitchen. And they've lived with this baby gate their whole lives. This is not new to them. And this particular night, they parked themselves by that gate, and they were just booping the handle that lifts up with their nose over and over and over again. Boop, boop, boop. And I could hear this noise. And the cat too, like I ignored enough that I could fall asleep. And then the cat would start meowing, and the cat was just off the hook, like really driving me nuts, really. And eventually the dogs that night figured out how to open the gate by booping the handle with their nose, and the gate would swing open. And I'd wake up to either the sound of the gate swinging open or the dogs in the hall outside my bedroom making noise. And I was angry. I was like really frustrated because, oh my God, I just wanted to sleep. So I thought, well, I can't let the dogs win, is what I was thinking, because if they win and like I let them in my bedroom, well, I cannot let them in my bedroom because one of them snores and I would never have slept. But I thought, well, I could put them in one of the kids' rooms and go to bed, but then I didn't want the dogs to win and know that opening the gate is okay, because then they'd never stop doing that. So it must have been 4 or 5 times that I got up and put them back down in the kitchen. And then I got wise to the fact that I can actually lock that handle so that they can't boop it with their nose. And then the dogs would start. Oh, and okay, sorry. I feel like I'm rambling. I should have collected my thoughts before I recorded this. In between the dogs opening the gate and me trying to get a few moments of sleep, they would also be barking. They don't normally bark at night. Maybe once here and there, but this was like something different. It was like an intermittent, steady, like not like going crazy bark, but just like woof, like they were uneasy kind of sound. Not like there's someone at the window or, a knock at the door and the dogs go apeshit. It wasn't like that. It was just like they were vocalizing that they were uneasy. And they also really wanted to go outside on the deck. So when they weren't trying to get through the baby gate into my end of the house, they were trying to get on the deck. And they never want to go outside in the middle of the night. So a couple times I let them out. And they went out on the deck and they just kind of looked at me from the deck. Like okay, we're out here now. Like, they didn't want to do anything out there. They didn't need to go pee. They weren't out there barking at anything. And I started to get wise to the fact that they just didn't want to be in the kitchen, is what it seemed like. And that, coupled with the fact that the kitchen to me seemed really busy, and like the whole house seemed full, but especially the kitchen. And then once the dogs realized they couldn't get through the gate by booping it anymore with their nose, because I had locked the handle, they didn't stop trying, and they started pushing the gate down until it crashed. Like, it's a tension mounted gate, and they would just push on it with their body weight until it crashed, which, yes, they could have done this their whole lives. It's not hard. They're big, heavy dogs. The gate's not that strong. But it was only that one night they were really determined to get out of that kitchen. So, yeah, they wanted out of the kitchen. And so did the cat. And finally, I was just so tired. I thought, okay, I'll let the dog sleep in one of my kids' rooms, and I'll at least be able to get a few hours of sleep. And it was 4:30 by the time I got to sleep. This went on and on all night. And yeah, I'm not exaggerating. It was like 5 times they opened the gate and I went and fixed it. And in between that, it's like 3 times they're needing to go outside on the deck. And then after that, it's like 3 times that they crashed the gate down on the floor. It was just nonstop. And then when I finally did fall asleep, I had a dream that there were, in my dream, they were, I thought of them as ghosts, but they weren't ghostly looking beings. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I do wonder if it was more entities or like fairies rather than ghosts. But all I knew in my dream was that they weren't of this world. And they were in my kitchen having a party. Oh, I just got chills in my dream. And they were ignoring me. And they were opening the door, and they were just ushering all their friends to come in. And the kitchen was filling up with all of these beings and their friends. And I didn't want them there. And I was trying to tell them to leave. And they wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't leave. It wasn't a scary dream, but it did seem to fit in with the events of the night. And like, I put the pieces together the next day that the dogs didn't want to be in the kitchen. That hadn't occurred to me that night before I fell asleep. Otherwise, I think I would have been freaked out. But I wasn't freaked out that night. I wasn't scared. It was it's a scary thought, I guess, a little bit, to be alone and know that your dogs don't want to be in the kitchen. But honestly, like, I wasn't scared that night because I wasn't thinking along those lines of, geez, the dogs really just don't want to be in that room. I only thought of that the next day. And then my dream, yeah, it was very parallel with the actual experience. Oh my gosh, this is way longer than I wanted it to be. I'm so sorry. What else has happened? Nothing, no movement on the sculpture front. I need an electrician to come and fix my kiln before I can start working. But I did one day, so this is the day that I found the fairy book in my attic. I felt really compelled to create a spare bedroom in a room that I had thoughts of making like a possible art studio. It's just sort of an unused space in my house. But I wasn't really committed to the whole studio aspect of it. And one day I just felt really compelled to make a spare bedroom, which I don't have. And that's where the motivation was. So that's what I did. And I've got a big house where I can do art anywhere I want. So I don't really need a studio per se. But anyway, lots of motivation this particular day it was last Thursday, to make a spare room. And the whole time I'm making this room, I had to like take apart a bed, a homemade bed, and bring the pieces upstairs and put it back together because it wouldn't fit up my stairs. And it was quite an ordeal. And it took me all day to put this bedroom together. And the whole time I'm intentionally putting my energy into inviting the fae into the room. Like I'm making a spell, sort of, the whole time I'm putting the room together, like manifesting that this room can be yours. Like this, it will host guests, but essentially it's your bedroom, so feel free to play, frolic, you can have the room, it's yours. This is the fairy room, is what I was thinking, just for fun, the whole time that I was making the space. And then I went up in the attic to grab my portable AC unit and put it at the window. And while I was up there, I felt really compelled to go through an old box that I had a bunch of junk in from when I was young. And it was really hot in the attic, especially this time of year. It was stifling up there. And I was overcome with this compulsion to go through this box that I had never looked through in my adult life, even though I was sweating buckets and it was really uncomfortable up there. And I guess I could have taken the box downstairs and looked through it, but I didn't. I just sweated it out and I looked through this box up in the attic, like almost feverishly, like I had to know what was in that box. And I grabbed a book, like a homemade, it was a writing assignment. And on the cover is a picture of like a garden or a flower and a cross, and it's drawn by clearly a young person, and the title is The Fairy. And it had been a book, like a writing assignment, made by my junior high crush, and this was grade 9, and he and I often wrote each other like long, detailed, basically fantasy short stories where we would write each other into characters in the stories. But we would always use like prince and princess, and I don't ever remember him writing a fairy story about me, but clearly he did because I was holding it in my hand. It's called The Fairy, and it was all about how Megan, the fairy, was basically like a naughty, evil temptress tempting this religious prince into a forbidden garden, and about his moral dilemma with wanting to frolic with the fairy in the forbidden garden. And which is so funny because that parallels our actual like friendship. We definitely came from opposite sides of the tracks. So it's funny that way, but also just that I found a book about myself as a fairy while I was making a bedroom for fairies, and it was after our interview. And then also, the fairy lights that looked a lot like the one I just saw at the beginning of this voice memo started showing up in the bedroom on film. So I didn't see them like to the naked eye, but I was just kind of taking a film of the room being done. I was going to send it to my sister to show her like, hey, I'm so proud I just made this spare bedroom. And these flying lights show up on the film. Like, now, to a skeptic, and even to my skeptical mind, there are candles lit in the room, and I know like candle flicker can be a thing on camera, but I don't know. It looks like it's flying to me, and I'll send it to you. You.
Hello. I'm way behind on your episodes because I've been editing my book, but I'm listening to the Green Man episode, and if I could just get through one episode without a synchronicity, like, wow. So when I left the house an hour ago, I had wiped the countertops down, and when I came home, there was just a penny sitting on my countertop, and I was like, that's weird, because I would not wipe a countertop and have it be all wet and just like put a penny there, like set it down if there was a penny, I would clear that shit and put it in like I have a place I would put them in the kitchen. And then I thought when I saw it that the number would be important, and it's 1969. And I don't know if you remember when I told the radio was like tuning by itself last summer. It went to 96.9. I'm just like, what the fuck? And that's when I found the Hagstone. I think that didn't make it onto an episode because crazy shit happened. But, and so anyway, I got home, found the penny. I was like, ooh, what the fuck? This is weird. And then I saw the number. And then 1969, I remembered. Then I'm like, well, you could have just left your penny laying there, right? Not everything is a sign. Okay. I hit play on the podcast, and like a minute later, that lovely Australian woman said the penny dropped. What the fuck, dude? That's crazy. It's just it's weird. It could be nothing, but I'm like, why in God's name would I wipe a countertop with a wet cloth and then like place a penny back down in the wet pile? I wouldn't. It could be a coincidence. I'm trying to not like fly off into the flights of fancy, but I am really, really loving this episode. You have the coolest guests on. Like, my God, I want to be friends with all these people. People.
Hey Jim, Michael here. Just wanted to give you a short note. Something else strange happened. I'm the guy that has all this collection of strange encounters. Anyhow, the other day I was in my room journaling. It was about a relationship that I was trying to like make sense out of. During the course of it, I started to use the word talisman. I don't really know where it came from. It just popped in my head. Anyhow, as I was writing, started to get pretty emotional. The whole thing became somewhat intense. Took a little break and walked into my bedroom. And there in the middle of my 4-door dresser was my amulet-style necklace that I basically wear on a daily basis. And it was hanging on the center knob of my 4-door dresser. How it got there, I haven't a clue. The only other living creatures in the house at the time were the cats, and I'm really hard pressed to see how they could have possibly have done that. Anyhow, when I walked in and saw it, I was pretty much gobsmacked. I just stood there and stared at it for about a minute and didn't know what to make of it. So I thought you'd kind of find that fascinating. So there you go. Another strange story for the collection. Hey man, take care. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.
So then that afternoon, after we got the 7-year-old birthday party out of the way, everyone was exhausted, trying to have a pretty chilled out afternoon. It was a bit drizzly and rainy, and very randomly my partner Matt was like, hey, let's go to Stony Creek. I was like, really? Okay. He's English. He's normally a bit precious, you know. The rainforest is beautiful, but English people like it to be perfect weather before they venture out into nature. I'll go any old time. But anyway, he was like, yeah, let's take the girls. I was like, cool, let's go. Quickly just grabbed some stuff. I was like, ooh, I'll quickly grab some bells and beads because I like to just make this little strand with some bells and beads, and I'll hang it in a really pretty fig tree somewhere. It's enjoyable for other bushwalkers to come across something really beautiful and inoffensive. Like I don't put plastics or anything. I hang it on a piece of like organic bamboo string and all this sort of stuff. And I haven't really used this bag before, but I just randomly grabbed this red velvet jewelry bag. So I chuck it in the jewelry bag and I'm carrying it around the creek. and I string it up, and I even went to hang it in a tree, and it just kind of like the cord snapped. I was like, oh, and it was wet, and the girls are getting a bit ratty, and it was just time to go home. So I just put it back in the bag. I was like, I'll just deal with this later. Another failed attempt at an offering on the winter solstice. Like, I was going to leave wine. I left marshmallows instead. I was going to leave this thing hanging in a tree. Got difficult, and I didn't leave it. We come home, get the girls to bed. I did a meditation with a little card reading as I was shuffling my Fairy Oracle cards, the Brian Froud deck. One card jumped out. It fell on the ground face up, and it was the Green Woman. Of course, the Green Woman. There is no Green Man specifically in that deck, but there is a Green Woman. And I laughed. I had a really crazy reading. Enjoyed the whole thing, blew out the candle, went to say goodnight to the world and turn in and go to bed. Stepped out from underneath the awning out the front, put my feet in the grass because I always do before bed. And I looked up in the sky, and I did sort of just think like, I'd love to see like lights or orbs, like how Liz sees those orbs. She's down in South Australia, and I'd just love to see something like that. And then I was just staring at the sky, and I was about to just take that final breath and just turn around and go to bed, and then I see a blinking light in the sky. Blinking light. It was the size of a star. It was kind of the brightness of like a bright star. It wasn't any bigger or smaller than. And it was blinking. And it was just moving within like a small area of the sky. I actually kind of made a bit of a quick bearing where I was looking, because it was just this reoccurring blinking. It would just flash, and then we go on, flash, and then we go on. And I started counting the seconds between it. I think this went on for 10 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. I was entranced by it. When I came in, I was surprised with how cold I was and how late it had gotten. So I actually might have been standing there for heaps longer than I realised. But it was at least 10 minutes. And it was blinking, but it wasn't moving in any one direction. It wasn't moving across the sky. I noticed 3 stars that made a bit of a triangle, and it stayed within where these 3 stars were. So it was easy to take a bearing of whether or not it had moved. Sometimes it would blink and it would be in the same spot. Sometimes it would blink and it would be a little bit higher up or a little bit lower down, or over to the right or over to the left. So it wasn't moving in a linear fashion. And when I counted the seconds, it was about 13 seconds between blinks, but not always. A few times it was 21 seconds between blinks. A few times it disappeared for a while, what felt like maybe a minute, and then came back again. But it was always sort of within the triangle. And I thought of a recent episode. I listened to the gentleman that saw lights in the sky, and then he asked them to do a U-turn. That sprung into, I was like, well, I'm standing here looking at a blinking light in the sky that can't be a plane. It's not a plane, it's not a satellite. Only other thing it could potentially be is a drone. We have a drone. My partner flies drones. And I'd be very surprised if it was, it just didn't look or behave like a drone. It looked a lot like a blinking star. Anyway, I asked it, I was like racking my brain, what can I ask it to do? Because I can't ask it to do a U-turn because it's a blink. It's not like just a moving, consistent light. It was just show up one spot and then show up another spot. I didn't get to see it actually moving. And I asked, okay, just go straight up. And then after going straight up, go straight down, please. Okay, yeah. So I asked it to go up and then down. And remember, I've taken a bearing. It all these movements for maybe 10 minutes had taken place within a small part of the sky, and I had taken a bearing off these 3 stars within a triangle. And as soon as I asked it, I just asked in my mind. I didn't say it out loud. I don't think I said it out loud. I think I just asked in my mind. So if you know that I can see you, can we do this thing? As soon as I asked it, it disappeared. It just stopped. No more blinks. And they'd been very consistent, 13 seconds or 21 seconds, or just not disappearing entirely. It just disappeared for at least a minute, maybe longer. And I just thought, no, I'm going to stay. I'm not going in. I'm not going in. I'm just going to stay and look and stay and look. I'm not making the mistake I made with the car. I looked at it last night, thought, this is strange. And I went back inside and went to sleep. Stay. I'm staying. I'm staying. And then there was the blink, and it was up. It was outside of the triangle. It wasn't really far away, but it was distinctly up from all the other blinks it had had. The other blinks had moved, but neither of them had been as up as this because it was now just outside the triangle. And it stayed there and blinked for quite a while, just in that up position. It didn't move much once it was up there. It didn't move nearly as much left, right, up and down as it did when it was just playing within the triangle. Left, right, up, down, kind of zigzaggy. Like, hey, this is the sort of pattern that things can't do that are satellites and planes. Drones can. I must say drones can go left, right, up, down, but it wasn't a drone. Drones don't look like tiny little blinks in the sky. We play with drones. We use drones a lot. Also, I live near an airport, so drones can't actually, unless you've got illegal overrides, they can't go more than 500 metres up. And if that was a drone, it would have had to be very high up, like much higher than 500 metres, for the light to have looked as small as a star. And they generally have red. They flash white, red, white, red, white, red. Anyway, I might be wrong about that. I'm no expert. I'm just a novice. So it goes up, and it stayed up there probably a couple of minutes. There were heaps of blinks up, and I was like, cool, it went up. But it doesn't confirm anything because I asked it to go up and then down. So I said again in my head, okay, awesome, super excited, that went up. Can we go down? Can I get down, please? It disappears. Nothing. For longer, maybe 2 minutes this time. Maybe it felt like a long time, to the point where I might just go to bed now. It's getting late. I'm cold. I've been out here for ages. I'm exhausted. It's all been a super woo-woo, crazy stuff going on weekend. I'm pretty tired. I'm feeling the crash. But I thought, no, I'm just going to stand here. I was like, down, come on, down, 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 down. And then finally, there's this one little blip, and it was softer. It wasn't as bright as the other blips, and it was down. It was maybe 3 times further down the bottom, outside the bottom of the original triangle than it was when it was up. So it was quite a bit further down, but still in the same place in the sky. And because I wasn't looking down there, I wasn't looking directly at it, but I distinctly saw a blip, a little blink, but it seemed softer. But I was like, maybe because I wasn't looking right at it. I was like, come on, one more. And I looked for maybe another minute. Well, it felt like a long period of time. And I got one more blink in that same spot. And then that was it. I stayed for another 10 minutes. No more. Maybe it wasn't 10 minutes, but a long time, long enough that I'm like, okay, that was it. That was my last little cherry on top. And I was just like, cool, thanks. Everyone weird and spiritual in the interdimensional soup here. I'm just going to bed. Went to bed, couldn't sleep all night. I was so tired, and I just couldn't sleep. Anyway, of course, I messaged Jim before I went to bed. I messaged you, Jim, and I said, hey, sorry to text you again. But yeah, I just saw this thing in the sky, thought it was cool. You sent me a picture of a jewelry bag that had been knocked off a bench, but couldn't have been knocked off a bench and fallen and landed and caught itself with a lip over the side of the bench, and it's caught itself on a doorknob. I don't know where in the world it's happened or who it happened to, but I know that earlier that day I was walking around a creek with a fairy offering in a velvet jewelry bag that looked a lot like the picture you sent me that I didn't get around to hanging. And now I'm staring at an image of a jewelry bag hanging. And I thought, this is like the alcohol all over again. I didn't get around to actually leaving alcohol. So you guys left me alcohol. Well, I didn't get around to hanging my piece, but you guys have sent me of a jewelry bag hanging. Don't know if that's associated, but at this stage, who knows what is and isn't. There have been more little strange bits and pieces in amongst all of that, but those were the real kind of standout ones that we've been texting about. So that's been my winter solstice experience while you have been editing the episode we did a couple of weeks ago. And up until you starting editing that, or maybe like thinking about it and then starting that process, my life's been pretty normal. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim.
I just wanted to give you a little update. Since you and I talked last, things have been bonkers over here. I feel like there's been such an increase in activity and just strange, unexplainable things happening around me. So I'm going to explain to you what those are. Firstly, electronics are just being very fritzy around me. A lot of the remote controls in my house are not being responsive, even though they have new batteries. I just feel like I'm being messed with all the time. Things are turning off when I don't turn them off. Things are turning on when I don't turn them on. This is going on in my house. It's going on my phone. It's going on in my car. My car is having strange electrical malfunctions that will correct themselves the second that I say out loud, "Hey, if this is you, I need you to stop playing with me. I need my car to work." So an example of that was the key keeps getting locked into the ignition, and then when I ask her to stop, it will come right back out. Or the air flow in my car, when I'm turning it on air conditioning, it won't work, but then the heater works, but then the AC will work again once I explicitly say out loud, "Hey, if this is you messing with my air, please stop. I need it to be cold in here." And since I've asked for those things to stop, I haven't had any issues with them again. So that's kind of interesting. I take my car in regularly whenever there's an issue, and I've had lots of things repaired. Shouldn't be happening like that. Another super interesting thing that's happening is my Spotify app that I use to listen to podcasts and music with has been sending podcast episodes to people when I'm asleep that would specifically relate to topics that they would be interested in listening to. And then I'll get a notification in the morning that says, "Hey, thanks for the podcast," and I didn't send it. So either I'm sleepwalking, or I don't know. It's weirding me out because I know that I did not send those podcasts to people. That's happened twice this week. And then perhaps the most enchanting and interesting thing is that I usually have these little metal jewels on my watch. It's like a watch charm, and I really love bugs. So I've got these two moths, and they have little sigils on them. My favorite one is this teal moth that has the North Star on it. It's a little charm that I wear every day. And I looked down and realized that my moth was missing. And I didn't know if it just fell off or if the fairies took it. So I said, "Hey, if you guys took my moth charm, I would like it back, please. Thank you." And then I went outside and was walking to leave the condo that I live in. And I walked along the path and was kind of looking on the ground, just wondering if maybe my charm had fallen off when I went out to get groceries before. And so I walked along the path and didn't find anything. And once I stopped looking, I got distracted by something and then ended up looking down at my feet, and right on the ground in front of me was this golden ring, like a piece of jewelry, and it has these stones of different colors that I believe correspond to the chakra colors. And on the inside of the ring, there's engraved words that say reality, soul, mind, time, space, and power. Power, 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 power.
To start with, that ring is trippy. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about the ring. It's nothing to do with me, but there's just something. There's something about that ring. It's a great start to my voice. 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 Great start. Hey Jim. Last one. I don't have anything new to say. I was just driving to the gym just now, pondering all this, and I realized another quite interesting detail. I think I mentioned it, but I didn't realize it was an important thing. And I know you're no stranger to having people knock on your door and be like, I think that weirdly was quite specifically fate related. So when we woke up at midnight and I said that random guy knocked on our door to let us know the car was in the middle of the road, I remember, because we're a bit frazzled, like we'd only just really gone to bed, and I was like, what's going on? And the guy knocked on the door with sturdy, strong knock. And I went to the front of the house and I looked out the front window to see who was there through the little slats. I turned the light on and I could see him. He was standing back at the fence. And he goes, hey, I'm not here to cause any harm or anything. Just straight away, he goes, I'm not here to cause any harm or anything. That was exactly word for word what he said. And it kind of rung in my brain a few times. And I'm like, I'm not here to cause any harm or anything. Fair enough thing to announce, and you knock on someone's door at midnight, just, to alleviate our stress. But the weird part is that when I went to bed, before I went to bed and I was lighting my candle, and I said this in one of my other voice messages, I specifically asked, and I was thinking about Ruby, and I think it's Ruby. I was like, hey, Faye family and friends, let's, can we have something? Can I have something? And I specifically said, I remember rambling, like, how do I say this? Because I know you've got to be like, well, I don't know. I've heard that it's best to be quite specific, no harm or anything. And I couldn't think of the words. What I wanted to say was, please don't cause any harm to my physical self, the physical self of my family, or our physical property, yada, 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 make it sound like a legal document. I couldn't think of anything. I was a bit tired. It's late at night. And I was like, just please don't cause any harm or anything. And then I got my words after that and said a few more specific things, but I specifically said, and I was standing exactly where the guy was standing. He'd come, knocked on our front door and then moved out to the front where I go and stand on the grass. Like, that's exactly where he was standing when he goes, I'm not here to cause any harm or anything. And I was just pondering it driving into the gym this morning, and just thought, going over it, and I was like, oh, my God. I just need to stop thinking about it now because it's so trippy. But, yeah, I'm pretty convinced about all this.
There was thunder on the border, lightning in the sky, shined on the horizon of the falling night. A man among disorder, standing in the street. You can see him in your dreams, You can see him in your dreams. And he said, we are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. I know. We are not alone. If I could see it your way, and they could see it ours, I'd walk right through the doorway and understand the stars. If I could wave to you wandering from a ship that passes by, will I return to the inlet and wipe the water from your eye? And I say, we are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. I know. We are not alone. Through the valley, up the river as it winds, and I don't know if I'm deeper in the woods or in the mind. And I come to a meadow where the sun had bleached the grass, and a billion flower petals were smiling as I passed. And they say, we are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. I know. We are not alone.
Hey Jam, it's Holly here. Just listened to your episode with Amy, and the last 3 episodes I've listened to just blown my mind. Just, gosh, I love your show. But I just wanted to share something with you for fun. So I'm driving home from work, and I can't wait to get in the car because I've got the last half of the Amy episode to listen to. I listened to the first half on my way to work this morning at 5 a.m. I'm like, yes, working day's over. I'm listening to the rest of this episode. I'm driving home. You guys are talking about object communication, and you went, that's obviously been a big theme in season 2, but you really went into depth with the significance of object communication, drawing us out of the possibility of us just having mass delusion and having our intuitive feelings, even like seeing things that can just be so easy to talk yourself out of. And the object communication is just like this next level undeniable thing. And then I was thinking, and just in my little head, wouldn't it be cool if I had like more object communication going on, noting all my other kind of cool fairy activity, just in a fun, playful way. I was thinking that. And I was also thinking I'd love for something to happen to my partner, he's a skeptic, but he, like kind of like Amy's situation, he's so supportive of me and respects my intelligence and respects my view on the world. So I'm in a very safe place, and I've really opened up with him lately and told him, not last night, but the night before, the full extent of my theory about the Green Man, the punches in our garage door, and then the car also moving itself to the middle of the road later down the track with all the surrounding stuff. Like, I really went into detail. So that was 2 nights ago. I'm driving home, listening to your episode with Amy, and I'm like, I'd love some more object communication. I realise I'm 20 minutes from home. I have to call Matt because I'm going to pick up some takeaway on the way home. So I stopped listening to the episode. I call Matt. We're having a little conversation, and he's like, oh, Holly, by the way, good news. I'm like, yeah, what is it? He goes, the Ryobi charger's back. I found it. I was like, what do you mean? We looked everywhere for that. That is good news. It's just the charger for our leaf blower and our edger and our whippersnipper. So we kind of need it. And we've been looking for it. And he asked me the other day, and I went into the garage, extensively looked on my workbench. There's a few objects on the workbench because it's a workbench, but I looked there and I worked on the workbench yesterday. I was doing work on some wooden dowel for some of the pieces that I make, and it wasn't there. Like, I looked, he looked, we both looked. It's a very obvious spot. Anyway, of course, I go, where was it? He goes, it was on your workbench. And I got in the door and I walked straight into the garage, and there it is on the workbench, and it's in the fucking center. It's in the center. And I laughed and I went to Matt. I said, hey, Matty, have you touched that? And he goes, I haven't touched it. I saw it. I laughed about it. I walked out of the garage. That is exactly where I found it. I haven't touched it. I took a photo of it. I laughed. And then I told him everything. I said, humor me. And he did. He just heard it out and he laughed. And actually, when he told me that he'd found it, he goes, oh, Holly, good news. I've got great news, actually. I was like, what is it? He goes, it's the fairies. I was like, what is it? He goes, I found the Ryobi charger. So it's interesting that his dialogue has changed. And it's also not because I'm trying to convert him. Just it's easier to be understood in a relationship. It was interesting that was, in a joking way, the conclusion that he came to. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that because the whole... I have a thing. When I listen to your episodes, weird shit happens in my life which directly correlates with Fascinating Faye. The magic's real. It's all happening. Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh. Thanks, Jim. See ya.
Hey, the fire has come, and I can hear the beating drum. So I dance between the flames, burning bright on the yin and yang. When we arrived and we came to here, we forgot why we decided to come. When we arrived and we came to heal, we forgot why we decided to come. Ooh, ooh, Hey, the night is dark, and I yearn to make a spark. It turns to flames, then I get burned. And again, until I learn. When we arrived and we came to here, we forgot why we decided to come. When we arrived and we came to here, we forgot why we decided to come. When we arrived and we came to here, we forgot why we decided to come. When we we arrived and we came to here. We forgot why we decided to come.
If you've made it this far to the end of this update episode, chances are you're a true fan of the show. And I want to just say thank you so much for listening and giving your energy, time, and brain power to contemplating this subject matter. Something that you might notice I never do on the show is I do not do the traditional podcaster thing where you ask for reviews and to follow and to like. Main reason I don't do that is because it's really not my emphasis in producing the show. However, I'm starting to notice a lot of audience growth again in this sort of past 3 months. There's easily 1,000 new people that are tuning into the show on a regular basis. And I'm starting to notice in my analytics trends that the show is starting to enter a lot of chart positions across spirituality podcasts and science podcasts all over the world, both with Apple and Spotify and other services that can give you that kind of positioning data. So with all that analytical data that I can see, I just notice, for example, I still only have actually 4 reviews on Apple Podcast. I still only have 18 star ratings on Spotify, for example, at this time. If you're one of the people listening and you've enjoyed, the many hundreds of hours of content provided from Fascinating Fae, just a reminder at this juncture, I just do this show as a labor of love. If you have a moment where you can take some time to leave a review wherever you see fit, and whatever kind of review you see fit, good, bad, in the middle, otherwise it's really not important. The goal, I guess, of asking for this at this time is to just reflect more accurately the listener base for those that are maybe encountering the show for the first time. I know for myself, if I'm checking out a show and I see 18, 20 star ratings and 4 or 5 reviews, I might not be so eager to dive in. But if I see a more substantial reflection of listener engagement in the form of, more reviews and more star ratings than that, it makes it a lot more attractive for me to dive in. It also, as everyone knows, is a big way that the algorithms get the show in front of new listeners. And so for this reason, if you're finding that Fascinating Fae is giving you value, giving you entertainment, expanding your perspectives on the world, and you want that experience to be enjoyed by others, a simple, free, and easy way that you can both signal to me that you're out there, so I'm not just a guy, talking to no one in his room alone, and you can also really enhance the likelihood that others are going to find the content and join in the fascination. So with all that said, I just want to say thank you again very much for listening all the way through this bonus episode. We'll be back again next week with regularly scheduled programming.